What's up, everyone? Welcome into Hey Babe, Can We Talk? With me, your host and bestie, Drea Renee. If this is your first time here, welcome. This is the place for the hot mess expresses, the black sheeps of love, and for those who just can't seem to get it right when it comes to matters of the heart. I am you are me, we are one. And if nobody else gets you, I do. I am a relationship survivor, and I've done everything wrong, so let me help you do it right. And if you are returning, I missed you, and we're going to have a great episode. On today's episode, we have the so smart Drew Yacu, relationship expert. He's going to help you get yourself right and yourself right in your relationship. But before we get into that, make sure you guys hit that like, follow, and subscribe so you can keep up with all of our episodes. So let's get into it with Drew Yacu. Drew Yacu. Drew Yacu. I think that could be like a little...
I mean, it's handy that it rhymes. It really
right?
is. It's hard to forget.
Drew, thank you so much for being here.
It's a pleasure, Drea.
I wanted you to come on this show for so long. I mean, I've only been doing it for a little while. But when I started it, I was like, Drew has to come on because you are like the relationship expert.
Well,
you know it all.
I'm a student. We'll say that.
Drew, you are so smart. And so today, you guys, we're going to talk about how to attract and want an emotionally available partner. That is what we're going to be talking about today. So how do you define emotional availability?
Oh, good question.
We're going to get right into it, Drew.
So emotional availability is the acceptance with all emotions. So no matter what the emotional state is, having that full range and having that full range be okay by yourself and your partner.
What about your inner dialogue? How does that affect your emotional availability and how you show up with your partner?
It defines it. So your emotional availability is the emotional availability that you have with yourself, right? So it's just a reflection in the outer world is what's going on in the inner world. So most of us don't know the storyline or the content of our thoughts. Mm-hmm. And so most of us are not okay with parts of ourselves. Right? There are parts of ourselves that we're ashamed of or we're embarrassed by, or, there are parts that maybe are critical, right? Who's that? That's a critical part talking to another part.
Right.
So there's parts that don't like parts of ourselves. So all of that is what we would call today is emotional unavailability. Meaning this part cannot be as it is. It needs to get criticized or it needs to get shamed or it needs to get, beaten down.
And I feel like for me, when I go into a relationship, that voice is so loud. And I will tell myself, I want an emotionally available partner all the time. I'm like, I want him. I'm ready. I'm ready. And in my experience, when I've had someone show up that way, it freaked me the fuck out. And why do you think that is?
I think that it's probably unfamiliar to you, but ultimately,
that happens to a lot of people. Like
where
people
they don't feel
up.
Safe being fully seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that case, then it would be, because that's a bit of a distortion, right? Where here's a description of a relationship that you want. I want to be fully seen.
Right.
I want to be heard. I want to be understood, right? And then I want to be accepted. These are kind of different levels of that whole experience. And then when it shows up, you say, no, I don't want this, right?
Yeah.
But it's not really you saying it. It's a part of you saying that you don't want it. And so what we do a lot of, and you've heard this before, we talk about parts of ourselves, parts work, is the core modality of the healing work. And so we just try to understand, like, why is that part afraid? What is it afraid of? What is it afraid that would happen if you were fully seen?
I mean, it's scary to be fully seen, don't you think? Someone's like, hey, I'm here, ready, available for you. That freaks me out. But I feel like I want it. And when someone has shown up that way, it was like, whoa, you're texting me back? You're making plans? Why? Like, that struggle with self-worth, I know a lot of people struggle with that. Right. And so when you're confronted with someone who's like, yeah, I'm down, you're like, I'm actually not down.
There's a part of you that says, I don't deserve this. And so that's the whole process of sabotage.
Okay.
Right? So you're like, all right, this part will say, how do we find a way to get out of this experience because it's uncomfortable?
And how do you identify an emotionally available partner? Like, what does it look like?
Language.
In your words?
Yeah, it's language because internal language is emotional availability, right? So it's the language that you hear them say out in the world, right? So in the beginning, it's difficult to discern this. Especially with the wounds, right? We talk about emotional wounding. Because
we're all wounded, Drew.
Everyone's wearing a mask.
Yes.
You're right about that. Everybody has and carries a lot of wounds from the past. But that's more of a societal thing, right? That's just where we've come.
Do you think you heal from your wounds like completely and then you could just be this magical, perfect person?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not. So I'm still on my healing journey. I think it's going to last another 50 years.
50 years, Drew.
Yeah, well, there's different experiences of it, right? So things will upset me, right? Like there's stress in the world.
Okay, I know. I want to see what Drew looks like stress. What does Drew look like stress?
Well, so there's a part that will get frustrated about something. For example, I wanted to be here early, right? So I like to show up early rather than on time.
I said that. I was like, Drew's going to already be there. I know it.
And so because of things that were outside of my control, I didn't. So I showed up when I showed up. And so there's a part of me that's feeling that my nervous system getting tension. I'm feeling tension in my body, right?
Right.
So while that's happening, it is a function of my belief or my value of being on time or early. So it's a value system that I have. So now the world I'm experiencing the world in a way that is counter to my own value system. So now tension, right? So now what do I do with that? So I have to just observe it. I have to become an observer of the tension.
Observer of the tension.
And then be able to have a conversation with that part of me that is worried about being late and say, you know what, it's okay. This is going to, and then just have that conversation.
I know, I could sense it a little bit when you walked in. I was like, Drew, it's okay.
In my own mind, right? And then that brings me back to a state of regulation.
Right.
So it takes a few minutes, but then, whereas like conflict can last, weeks, and people can hold grudges and not talk to people for years and years and years. So once you have a practice of healing, then it's minutes. Someone who's really close to you, let's say like a parent or a loved one or even a child, they'll frustrate you. Now it's like you take 10, 20, 30 minutes and you're back, right?
Right.
Versus anger and conflict and yelling and all that, all the difficulties. So healing continues. You just get really good at managing what's happening because you can't control the world.
Right. So your time in sort of being an observer of those thoughts and getting regulated is a lot shorter than, say, it used to be.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's the difference. So I don't think that, the world will automatically, absolve you of all problems.
Okay.
Not going to happen.
Because you told me, we went to lunch, you were like, I give myself high fives all day. Remember we talked about that, the critic? Talk to me a little bit about that. I love that.
So I don't have
that's what it was. You don't have a critic. You guys, Drew Yacu doesn't have a critic.
No, but I used to have, I would say 6 of them, right? Different, being shamed. I think that's what took me into this work. So the level of internal shame was off the charts for me. There was all of these different, voices going on saying why I wasn't good enough for different reasons, right? So that's why I say I have 6 different critics. And so that was my journey to figure out what was happening. And so that's where I started. I started all my healing work with understanding what was this voice so afraid of? Why was it so angry? And there was this point of like, who is speaking? Like, because if someone's saying that, who are they saying it to?
Right.
And that's when I discovered parts work, right? And that's where all these disparate parts started to show up in my mind. And I said, okay, now I understand the way the psyche is built. And then it took a little time of having conversations, building trust.
How much time?
I would say
how much do I need? How much do I need?
I got my first whiff of it back September 2020. And I'd say within about 18 months, my mind was like a paradise compared to where it was. But, that was a journey. And
right.
It's not like I was working on it every day.
That's what I was going to ask. Were you doing it every single day, or what was that?
I actually didn't document the journey, but you could probably now. I also had no help. I was searching everywhere. It was the pandemic, so there was no access to anything.
Right.
But today, so we have something called the Healing Program, which is a 6-week program.
So amazing.
But if somebody applies that within about 6 months, they're good.
And you are so just amazing with the work that you do. You guys, I am in one of Drew's programs right now. He is getting me right with myself. And talk to me about your process in building these modules and all the things.
Yeah, I mean that's my creativity. That's my art. Right?
Yeah.
So my art is language, and so which is why I was so fascinated by what was happening inside my own mind. And so I just start to paint these pictures of what is the journey, remember, we spoke about polarity, for example. Yes. And then we spoke about communication, but with that frame of polarity, like talking about masculine communication and feminine communication, all the spectrum in between. But if you didn't understand that the frequencies of all of the polarities, then layering on communication wouldn't make sense.
Right.
And then we talked about, sex and intimacy, and then last week, this week.
Sorry, guys, it's been a while.
and communication with sex, right? So it's just these kind of, it's really just telling the story of how does it unfold in ways that makes the most sense to learn.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I am so grateful to be in your program. I have a friend and she took it and she introduced us and she said it completely changed her life. So I highly recommend that you guys sign up for Drew's program. I want to talk again about attracting an emotionally available partner. Why do you think in today's society that is such a difficult thing? I feel like with social media and the way that people are dating these days, there's so many different types of relationships and a lot of them are unhealthy. Like open relationships, not that I'm saying that that's unhealthy, but I think this energy has created some just different dynamics when people show up that are very non-traditional. Situationships, like sneaky links, all these things.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Y'all know what a sneaky link is. Why do you think that is?
They're just expressions of internal behavior. Oh. So it's just more outwardly, right? So what we're seeing in the outer world is what's going on in the inner world, but we're just seeing it so vividly because of all of these communication channels. So it was always the case, right?
Ah.
Now with society being open, right? Because if you go back to the 1950s,
okay,
you couldn't do this. It was the nuclear family. It was very much a patriarchal society. And that was, if you look back for 5,000 years, it was a dominant and submissive relationship between man and woman.
Yes.
Then the 60s happened, right? And then we started to explore different ways of relating to one another. And this took a long time. I mean, we're talking, this has been 60 years later. Now we have a completely different dynamic where partnership is available and freedom is a lot more accessible. For example, you no longer need to depend on a man.
No, you do not.
Right? You can be completely independent and he doesn't provide anything from you from a provision perspective, economic perspective. You can take care of yourself, all these things. This is brand new in human civilization.
Right.
Right? We go back and that's just never been the case. So now with a lot more freedom, people are just exploring themselves, but they're also expressing themselves from a wounded state.
Ah.
So like when you say the idea of emotional unavailability, we've never been an emotionally available race, like the species at large.
Okay.
Because we've been, using things like shame as a way to modify behavior. So when a child is told that they're not okay as they are,
right,
they start to develop the inner critic. Everybody has an inner critic. Everybody has an inner critic, right?
You don't have one though.
I used to have 6. I told you that. So you heal them over time.
Right.
Which to me is part of the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
So it's
that's like a lifelong journey. And within that, I want to talk about the masculine and feminine energy and how that's changed today in relationships. How important is that in a relationship, you think? Like those dynamics?
For me, it's essential, right? So we talked about polarity and then compatibility as these two constructs where compatibility means you like the same things, but there's not polarity there, right? So
right.
You can be compatible and you can be friends. That's the platonic nature of relationships.
Yes.
But in order to have that, whether it's sexual chemistry, sexual tension, which is physical polarity, or emotional tension, or intellectual tension, right? Then you need a difference between the two so that energy can flow, right? Move back and forth. And our women these days are the most masculine they've been.
Yes.
And our men are the most feminine that they've been, right? But again, this is just part of the rebalancing that's happening. So men...
It's caused quite some problems, Drew. People are upset.
It's transitory.
The men are upset. They are angry.
It's transitory because, men suppress their emotionality for basically, again, a lot of human history.
Yeah.
And then women suppress their masculinity, right? They had to be submissive.
In the kitchen,
exactly.
The laundry,
the nurturer,
children.
Right?
Yeah.
Not a leader, not a strategist, not a tactician. And so now those energies are coming up in both genders. Men are becoming more soft, and women are becoming more rational, right? So rational, relational. And so this is having some, problems because a woman who is now in touch with her masculine energy is attracting a man who is in touch with his feminine energy. The poles are being balanced, but she doesn't respect him. So there is this experience of he needs to be able to have movement back into more of his masculinity and his strength in order for her to find him very attractive and sexy. to be pushed against the wall and
I know
taken when she doesn't.
These
even
dynamics
ask
are
for it.
so interesting to me, these dynamics, because like I wasn't fully aware of them for the longest time. And I think within the last 2 years in a relationship where somebody brought this up, he called me aggressive all the time, right? And I know I'm working on myself, okay? Thank you. There's a couple things where it's like I have to be right, or I got to like give a little tidbit or whatever. And granted, I didn't like internalize everything he said, but it did like kind of make me think of some things with my energy, how I take care of myself. And when you meet another person that is, because I am more masculine energy or whatever people want to say, he was not. So it was like two of us just kind of like butting heads, like, and it was not good.
A feminine man with a masculine woman, or at least in that mode, right? We talked about the modes.
Yeah.
Because you can be, you put a puppy in your lap, all of a sudden you're not going to be aggressive, right?
No.
Yeah, you'll be very sweet, very nurturing, very warm, very kind. And so, but what if somebody was threatening you, right? That energy.
I'm like, babe, take it.
That energy would come out, right? That energy would come out for protection.
Yeah.
So there's beauty in all of it. We just have to understand when does it work in our relationship, and when is it pushing us apart in our relationship.
I like to call myself, Drew, a medicinal woman. Modern and traditional. Trademark that. Medicinal. It's like a little combo pack of both. You know what I mean? And my friend Freddie says that that's not possible. You have to be super traditional, or you have to just be like, let go of all your masculinity.
That's
what do you
not
think?
True.
Right? That's what I said. Drew said that's not true.
Yeah, no. We have so much, like if we think of relationships as a canvas, and we have, the full, like I said, this full spectrum of masculine to feminine and healthy, right, range of emotional dynamic. Imagine you could paint with any of those colors, right? So what does that look like in terms of your relationship? Because that's what a relationship is, right? It's the expression of oneself with somebody else, right? It's these two people dancing together.
Say it louder for the people in the back, Drew.
So by exploring the different ranges of your own, energies, whether we call them masculine or feminine, I think it's beautiful to see what works, what doesn't, and then you add communication and say, I was really attracted to you when this happened. Actually, I felt that I wasn't attracted to you when you were nurturing in this moment, and I thought I would be. For example, like there was a survey with women that were not happy that men were not connected to their emotions, right? And so they started to give these, in a crisis, what happens if a man is connected to his emotions? And all of the women were extremely unattracted to this man when he was very emotional in that state, right?
Really?
Because he didn't have access to rational thinking and problem solving and to be able to safely get out of the crisis, right?
Yeah.
And so it's really, what's the backdrop? What's happening? If it's Sunday morning and you're, just waking up in bed and you want to snuggle and cuddle.
Amazing.
There's a place for nurturing feminine energy within both the male and the female. And then if you're, the plane is engine 2 just went out, right?
That ain't me, buddy.
Right?
That ain't me.
I am not in my emotion. I am like, everything is blocked out to figure exactly how to land this thing.
Right.
So you need the full range. And that's what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Men didn't have access to feminine. Women didn't have access to masculine. Now they're both coming up. So now we're looking at the next generation of human relationships, which is amazing.
With all of this knowledge, all the work you've done, how is it dating for you? Because it's like if you're a therapist or something, I feel like if you go out in the world, it's easy to just kind of psychoanalyze everybody. So how does this show up for you when you like go on dates or like you're out there in the world doing your thing? Are you more just like, she's wounded, I'm not doing that? I
do hear the language I speak wound, right? It's definitely a language.
You've let me know. I've learned from you that I speak a little wound too, a lot of wound. I'm working on that. I'm working on it. I'm in the program, Drew.
I right now am putting dating on pause for building all of these
systems
and programs. But I do, sporadically I'll go back into the dating world just to kind of like stick my head in it, see how it goes,
Drew,
and then I'll come back out of it. But I really realize I don't have the space, right? Because I want to provide not only time, but resource. And so that's really important for me to basically build up so that, she feels very safe.
Yeah.
But I'll let you know when I'm back, later on this year when I'm back in the dating world.
I'm just curious what it's going to be like.
We can talk about it. Yeah, no, because it's a reflection of me.
I know you said that.
The person that sits in front of me is a reflection of me.
I have a hard time with that, Drew.
I know. You'll get there.
I do. I really do.
You'll get there.
Because I'm like, am I unavailable? Because that's what I was... Drew,
Yes,
excuse me.
You are.
I have been. I'm in the program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, the reason that you're fascinated with this topic would indicate that you are emotionally unavailable. But this is the early part of the journey.
Yeah.
To say, let me discover about it. Let me learn about it. Let me inquire about it. So at some point, you won't be. So this is, you're much further along than a lot of people, because most would not even understand that they're emotionally unavailable within themselves.
Yeah, it took me a long time, because I was like, why am I so drawn to this? I mean, literally a person saying, Drea, I don't want to date you. I'm like, great, no problem. So I'll see you Saturday. And now I hear that and there's a pause. Yeah. We talked about that one incident, right? Yeah. Michelle knows. And I backed up from it, but it was like, there was still a part of me that was like, oh, he is fine. Yeah.
Chemistry. So you're still subject to chemistry.
Yes. We talked about that in class yesterday, right? Yeah, I found that so interesting about you can't control.
It's not meant to be controlled. You're part of the mammal kingdom, as am I.
Yeah.
So you are going to be subject to it, just like everything that is a species that, it replicates, right? That has offspring. So the idea.
I want offspring. Sorry.
That's not difficult to get. You can get offspring. I'm sure there's many men that will be willing to provide that for you.
I'm sure. But like a loving, healthy.
So you want intimacy.
Yes.
And you want chemistry.
Yes.
You want both.
I want both, Drew.
So the challenge is we get lost in this. So especially if there's wounds. We talked about it yesterday, that this fantasy land of building a future with someone who you don't know.
I go fantasy so quick.
So quick, right?
Second date, holding my hand.
This is how quickly one gets attached, And that's just based on needs that go unmet within you. This is you being unavailable to you.
Oh, yes. I love that you said that. That was such a pivotal moment to me, because I was thinking about that. I was like, am I available to myself? We got to ask ourselves this question, you guys. It's so important. Are you available to yourself? That changed me. So thank you.
That's the beginning. Yeah. At some point you will. And so this is me not having a critic means I accept everything that goes on, right? There's no criticizing. It's just all accepted.
But I'm a Virgo, Drew.
I don't know what that means.
It's the most critical sign. We analyze everything. I'm like, how? But is that part of it too?
That's just masculine energy. It's rationality, right? So if you can come to have a good relationship with that part of you, then it won't. It's amazing, because these parts, and if you ever look at IFS or parts work, which is just genius, this guy, Dr. Richard Schwartz, came up with it in the 1980s. But it's really taken a hold now. So we've only had access to it for really at the broader level for the last 15, 20 years. And so if you look at what happens during childhood, there's parts of ourselves that literally get frozen in time. So these parts of us, there's a 3-year-old part of you, there's a 5-year-old part of you, there's a 7-year-old part of you. And if you've ever seen a grown man have a tantrum, right?
Yes,
so it's a grown man as an adult in a body 6 foot tall, right? But then acting like a little boy. It is a little boy from his psyche that is sitting in the seat of consciousness, acting out. And so when we start to see these children and hear them and understand them and then accept them, then all of a sudden, just like a normal child, they calm down.
Is it helpful to tell them in that moment that they're in their inner child?
Who's telling who?
I'm just making a joke about the person having the tantrum. I'm like, you're being 6 right now, Drew said.
You're talking to the 6-year-old when you're having that conversation. That's
true. Okay,
so
don't do
the 6-year-old would definitely defend themselves.
So I'll wait till they come back to their adult self.
If they're familiar with the work, yes. Yeah.
How important is that to you when you do go back out and dating? Obviously, I'm sure it's going to be very important, but a woman who is fully emotionally intelligent and all those things.
It's not something I have to control or even think about, right? Because we date who we are.
Oh, right.
So it's like, there's not, the matchmaker is the universe. It's always been the universe.
Oh, yeah, you said that.
So you're not ever orchestrating the events. The events are being orchestrated by the very energy that you're putting out there.
I love that. So your lady's just going to come fully ready because you're ready.
No, she will have her own things. And the thing is, being able to have a conversation like this, right, to talk about what is upsetting, because conflict is a pathway to growth, right? And so being able to have that dialogue and having there be no anger and no blaming and no shaming is a function of no anger, no blaming, no shaming going on inside.
You.
Yeah.
Right.
Because then you're like, I was hurt by that. I was surprised, but I was hurt by that. when can we talk about it? Because, you're working right now and I'm doing this, but can we schedule some time tonight? Let's have dinner. Let's talk about it.
See, that's how I know I'm changing, because that is so attractive to me now. Like, conflict resolution is so important in a relationship. And if a man's like, hey, Drea, I had this guy say to me one time, he's like, we need to take 5 and regroup. Okay? Like, I think I'm going to say some things that I shouldn't say. I was like, okay, I like this. I'm changing and I'm healing. Thank you.
So you're attracted to emotional growth.
Yes.
Look at that.
I was really attracted to it.
She's grown up.
She's grown up. Okay, thank you. He was super nice, and I was like, I'm into this. But I was afraid at the beginning, because it was like my first time interacting with someone who was just fully available, showed up for me, did all the things. And I had to ask myself, like, if I felt like that about myself. Like, I wasn't like knowingly doing that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was like subconscious. But when you said, like, you are attracting what you are, then it like really came up for me. So, yeah.
There you go. Your frequencies are overlapping some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah, we did the frequency thing on the fridge.
We did, yeah.
That's right. And when you make a new choice,
Yep.
you change the frequency. Can you talk about that?
So there's the difference between knowing something and embodying something is the difference between knowing something and being the very essence of that thing. And so we have a lot of information that's out there. So the intellectual body or the mental body will grasp a concept like this. Mm-hmm. We're having a whole conversation about emotional availability.
Yes.
But
I'm available.
There might not be states of being emotionally available, right? So when you make a choice, you choose to move away from a partner that is not allowing you to be available to yourself or in the relationship. Now all of a sudden you have become different, right?
Yes.
Because that's something that you would not have chosen in the past. Remember our conversation? You're like, I would have usually routinely gone back to this guy, but I made a new decision. So now that's a new version of you.
Yes.
Because if you compare the two versions, this one says yes to the unhealthy relationship. This one says no to the unhealthy relationship.
Not today.
So now you're in a new frequency.
Yes.
And as you continue to do that, people call it raising your vibration, but you're just playing in a different, like harmonic, let's say. Yeah, so
raising my vibration.
Yeah,
that's what I'm doing, Drew.
But one's not good or bad. They're just a different, like, if you think about it as keys on a piano, there's not a better chord or a worse chord. They're just chords.
I'm still working on that, Drew.
They just make music, right? You just want to play.
Sometimes it don't sound good, Drew.
You want to play a different song. That's all.
That song don't sound good anymore to me. So I'm singing a new song, Drew.
You're singing a new song.
Oh my gosh! Thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Before we let you go, we're gonna play a little game of red flag, green flag. Yes. So, ladies, listen. Drew will be on the market very soon. So listen up. Okay, we're going to give you the red flag.
Okay, I have the red flag.
And the green flag.
And now I have the green flag.
There you go, darling.
So remind me, how do we play this game?
Okay, make sure you say red flag, green flag for those listening, okay? So if you think something is a red flag, or if you think something is a green flag,
so
when you're dating.
Let's add some context to it, right?
Okay.
Because it could be, depends on the relationship.
Okay, Drew,
right?
you can say both.
Be specific.
All right, you can say both, but like when you're dating, you start dating somebody.
Start dating.
Yes.
Because dating is a long journey.
Yes. I know, Drew, but for the sake of this game, okay? You're dating. New. Okay. If they talk to their ex.
I say that's a green flag.
Wow.
Because the question is, how do they talk to their ex? Do they talk with reverence? Do they talk about them, say it was such a beautiful experience? I learned so much. We knew we weren't right for each other. We parted ways well.
On the regular, Drew.
On the regular.
Yeah.
That's not honoring the new relationship. So we say red flag.
Thank you.
You
okay.
need space.
Has kids.
Has kids?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, irrelevant. Neither red flag, it's preference.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be a red or green
But for
flag.
you, Drew, if a woman has children, if you're dating.
I don't care about that.
So that's a green flag.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Just compatibility.
Liking other people's photos on Instagram. What if she's liking men's photos? They're like shirts off.
Well, you see,
Sexy.
that's insecurity.
Oh.
In the other person's part,
okay.
Right? Because if you say, I want to look at beauty and appreciate it, but I'm not allowed to, that's not availability.
So what is that for you? That's a green flag if she's liking other people?
It wouldn't bother me. You like if you look at beauty and say,
flag.
I think that's beautiful, go for it.
Okay, great. Green flag.
Green
Look
flag
at you, so open. I love it.
Because that's ego, right?
Okay.
It's ego to say you are not allowed to see beauty in the world because human beings are part of nature.
Well, I guess I got to work on that. Party girl. Goes out all the time.
For me, no, because that's not my lifestyle, but
Red flag.
Yeah, red
Got
flag.
it.
So I forgot to say it.
She wants to share locations. Second date, third date. Drew,
That's a red flag on the second date.
I thought you were fun.
Yes.
I'm just kidding. She leads with sexual energy quickly at the gate. She's like, let me see the peen, Drew.
Yeah, well, for me, that's red flag because now it's just a matter of there's no emotionality. And relationships are based on emotion and physical and intellect. So there's more aspects to it.
Love it. It's so true. Okay, big personality. She's at the gate. Hey!
For me, I love it because I'm a big personality. So green flag for me on that one.
Okay. She dresses terribly. She gets out of the car. You're like, yo, what the hell? But she's dope. You're just like, girl, not with those shoes.
Oh, man, that's a tough one because I guess I'm going to go red flag because I do like to find my woman attractive.
Okay, and the last one, she has cats.
She has cats. Yeah, green flag.
Yes!
An animal lover for sure.
Okay, I love it. Well, Drew, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. We'll definitely do a part 2.
Sounds good.
Anything you want to leave the people with before you go?
I often get asked, what's happening? How do I know what kind of person that I'm with, right? Mm-hmm. And so if you're listening to the language, right, that's coming, which is where we started this conversation, you listen to language. And if you hear things like, blame or shame or criticism, then you know the nature of the internal world. And so this is a kind of a preview of the woundedness that's happening on the inside. So something to be aware of.
Bravo. Yes, I love it. I'm in your course.
Chef's kiss.
Yes, I love it. All right, you guys, thank you so much for lending me your ear. Do not forget, this is the place for the hot mess expresses, the black sheeps of love. You are welcome here. Before you go, make sure you hit that subscribe, leave a comment, and you guys reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, I'm Drea Renee, and this is Hey Babe, Can We Talk?